Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. Now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Hey everybody, Merry meet and welcome to Stirring the Cauldron here on Para-X Radio. I'm Marla Brooks, and tonight we're going to welcome back some old friends and a new one. And we've also got some exciting news to share. For those of you who are regular listeners of Stirring the Cauldron, you'll remember the show I did back in 2009 on sleep paralysis and supernatural assault with Paul Taitt and Andrew Barnes, also known as Soul Smack. And their DVD called Your Worst Nightmare has, I think, given many people insomnia for fear that supernatural assault may happen to them. But their research on the subject has been a godsend to those who have indeed had this happen. In fact, when Paul and Andrew were on my CBS show way back when, a listener called in and thanked them for talking about it because she had had this horrible experience and was very relieved to be able to call in and share. And speaking of sharing, if anyone has a question or comment as we go along, please send me a message, a private message, and I'll be happy to pass it on. Now tonight, unfortunately, Andrew isn't able to be with us. But along with Paul, we have a new member of the Soul Smack team, Marcus Brooks, joining us from London, and a whole lot to talk about. So I think we should get started, and please welcome Paul Taitt and Marcus Brooks. Hi, guys.
Hey, Marla, how you doing?
Yeah, hi there, Marla.
I'm doing good. And Marcus, now that you're my long-lost cousin,
Absolutely,
welcome.
Absolutely.
Now you've got trial by fire tonight, huh?
Well, thank you for having me on tonight, and look forward to going through this wonderful dynamic conversation I'm sure we're going to have.
Well, we had a really good one the other day, and I think we'll just continue it on here. But for those who are listening who may not be familiar with who you guys are and what you do, what exactly is Soul Smack?
Well, Soul Smack is a research film production team, and we're now moving into other areas that we'll talk about later. But we primarily look into subjects that are sometimes thought-provoking, controversial, and stuff that is just not understood by people. We try to, look at it, and then we'll put our spin, and if we come up with any theories, we'll add those in the mix, just to create a bit more of this mystery around what we're trying to unravel. But we look into stuff from anything from UFOs, UFO abduction, and obviously the sleep paralysis, and we looked at it from the paranormal aspect as well, and then ghosts, alternative ways of thinking, consciousness, the spiritual realms, and then, anything else that just is interesting but not totally understood. We try to unravel it and bring that to as many people as we can with our ideas.
That can't be easy. But
it's not.
But you were talking about, the sleep paralysis, and last time you were on the show, that's what we talked about. But you guys last summer appeared on the Rachel Ray show talking about it. And I was so happy to see that because it's not often that we in the paranormal or metaphysical world, the one we live in and work in, we never usually get to cross over into mainstream media. So this is fantastic.
It was interesting. Well, actually, what happened was one day I'd been out and spent the night at some friend's house with my wife, and we woke up Saturday morning and we were having breakfast and the telephone rang, and it was Andrew. And then he said to me, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "What's going on?" He said, "I was just contacted by the Rachel Ray production team, and they want to do a segment on our film. They found it online. They're covering the topic, and they want to fly down a bunch of the Soul Smack interviewees that we had on the film and talk to them live on the show about sleep paralysis and how it affected them." So I was like, we were panicking at the time because they wanted everything like yesterday. They wanted footage. They wanted it in a certain format. which we didn't have it in because we shot in high definition, and they requested it all in standard definition. So we had to go then and down convert the whole film and chop it up into pieces and get it over to them literally within 48 hours. So we put everything we were working on hold, took care of them, and then we really didn't hear anything about the show for a long time. We thought they'd canned it at the end. It was just taking so long, but we found out later that normally they shoot and then they air about a year later. So we got notice from one of the production team for the Rachel Ray show that it was going to air July 23rd last year. So we had a big, party at the house that morning. It was an early morning show. We had people over. We had mimosas and, croissants and all sorts. And we just had a great time watching that show. And they actually flew one of the girls her name was Heather. She was in the film. They flew her up to New York, put her on stage, and she spoke to this English doctor that they flew over to talk about strange illnesses and strange diseases and stuff, and sleep paralysis was one of those that came up, even though it's not a disease. It came up, and she done a really good job about portraying the subject on mainstream TV, and then putting her ideas forward to how she coped with it as a result of being on our film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's a fascinating subject, and we might want to go into it just a little bit here. I just saw a note in the chat room from somebody asking, let me scroll back for 2 seconds, about the chest sitter. So I'm assuming that's the little demons that sometimes happen when you're at, the supernatural attack. For those who aren't aware of what that is, can you kind of give us a brief synopsis?
Yeah, a lot of people talk about sleep paralysis, and there are some descriptors that happen. You wake up and you're paralyzed. Your heart will be pounding. You're often sweating at the same time, and then a lot of people report footsteps coming into the bedroom. They can hear them. They're almost like a shuffling footstep, and then they will feel. They tend to feel the bed going down, as if something's just climbed up onto the bed. And all of a sudden, there'll be this tremendous pressure on their body. Whether you lay face down, you'll feel it on your back, or if you lay back down, on your back, you'll feel this tremendous pressure on your chest. And you'll feel yourself sinking into the bed. I've had this happen to me, and it really feels like a 300-pound person has just climbed on top of you. Now, where the description of this small goblin-like creature came in was there was an old painting by a guy called Henry Fuseli that was done in 1781. And your listeners can look this up on Google it. I mean, the picture's all over the place.
I love that picture, by the way.
Yeah, and that's the classic depiction where he was trying to show exactly what was happening during a sleep paralysis event. He was showing a lady sleeping on her back, this small goblin creature crouched down on her chest, and in the background you can see this horse's head, which represents the mare, the nightmare. So it was just a very good depiction of what sleep paralysis is like. And that's where I believe people got the impression that there is a chest sitter or something that climbs up on them.
Mm-hmm. And I know people say it's something demonic. Some people say, it's any number of things. But it really is something that does happen. And not as uncommonly as some might think.
Yeah,
absolutely. Sorry, yeah, before, people were quite embarrassed about talking about these things and this subject entirely. And, the doctors, clinicians would say, oh, well, it's to do with optical illusions, hallucinations brought on by physiological or psychological changes. Perhaps somebody's taken some drugs or effects of medication, etc. But as the Soul Smack team has gone in deeper and deeper into research, we found that these things are not true. It was almost an embarrassment before to actually bring these things to the surface and actually talk about it. But it's thanks to the paranormal community bringing this topic up and not being embarrassed to actually talk about it on radio. And as you said earlier on, Marla, about the Rachel Ray show, I mean, to bring it into mainstream, which has been absolutely just fantastic.
Mm-hmm. It's major. And, I think a lot of research is daunted by the fact that people are not willing to speak up because they think they're crazy or they think it's something to be ashamed of. And research can't get done unless you have people that share these experiences. Just now I'm looking in the chat room and one of our chat members said this has happened to her. Yeah. But when people don't come out with it, don't talk about it for fear of ridicule, nothing gets done. And what you guys did with the documentary is interview people. You have case studies. You can gauge the similarities, the differences, the patterns. And it's a fantastic thing to do. I mean, it's so helpful to people that are suffering with that.
It is. And the stigma that surrounds, talking about anything spiritual out in the open is what has kept this sort of behind closed doors and inside people for so long, because they don't want to let it out. They don't want to speak about it. And what we found was, this was pretty interesting. We spoke to a number of people during our interview sessions for the documentary, and most of them actually said that they had not spoken about this with anyone before they met with us. So the first time that they actually got to sit down and talk about their experiences with people that took them seriously, that believed what they said had happened to them, because it's a real experience, and I had had it myself a number of times, so I knew it was real. It allowed them to be able to cope with what was happening. And when it happened to me, the first time I was 22 years old, I was napping in the morning, so I was sort of drifting in and out of sleep, and I was laying, I always sleep face down, so I was laying there, face down on the bed, and all of a sudden, I opened my eyes at one point, and I felt this tremendous pressure bearing down on my back, and it was pressing me. I felt myself sinking into the mattress. And I thought that somebody had actually broken into the room, or into my apartment, and got into the room and was actually on me, and I'd woken up like that. And then I started to hear these whisper sounds behind my head going from ear to ear, and I couldn't see. But I mean, when I say I couldn't see, I couldn't turn my head to look at what was on me, but my eyes were open. And all of a sudden, the pressure alleviates. And the only way to describe it to someone who's never experienced sleep paralysis is this. If you've ever slept on your arm and woken up and it's dead and it feels like someone else's arm is in the bed with you, have you ever had that happen? Well, that's what it feels like. So when that feeling comes back into your arm, the feeling of motion, that's what it feels like when sleep paralysis disperses out of the body. You get that sense of, oh, I can move again. And then I jumped up. And when I jumped up, I was looking around the room because I was convinced somebody was in there with me. And that was back in 1992. And back then we didn't have the internet. We weren't so lucky. And we didn't, I didn't know what had happened to me. There was no way of finding out. I couldn't go to the library because I didn't know what to look up. And for 4 or 5 years, I had no idea until I saw a TV show where sleep paralysis was mentioned. And I never spoke about that to anyone.
Yeah, there's a definite stigma attached to it. Now, got an interesting question from the chat room, actually from Badger. He says, a lot of times this phenomenon has the bed partner sleep through it, which is kind of an interesting aspect. He was kind of wondering, do you think that the partners are kept asleep on purpose during this?
No, I don't believe they're kept asleep. I believe that the experience, and we're going to get into more about what this could be. The experience is an individual's own experience. I have not yet seen anybody share an experience of sleep paralysis. But sleep paralysis is something that happens to an individual. And these are my theories on it. After all the research and after actually experiencing it myself, I've come to the conclusion sleep paralysis has two parts to it. One is a physiological part that's, it's a mechanism that's understood. You go to sleep, your body paralyzes itself, and it's to stop you from acting out your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it can be brought on from stress, PTSD, all sorts of traumatic stress, worry, lack of sleep can bring it on. So that's a physiological side of it. There is a spiritual side to this, and I'm convinced of that after my experiences. The spiritual side being that shamans have used sleep paralysis for a long time as a gateway to out-of-body experiences. And during one of my sleep paralysis episodes, in fact, the very last one I ever had, it was a full-blown out-of-body experience that when I returned to my body, my eyes opened in the exact same moment that I could see myself laying in the bed, and I was in that paralyzed state. And that led me to believe that this was also a spiritual experience that people were having, as well as the physiological side of it. So this is a very bizarre and strange experience, but it's for your listeners out there, if you've ever had this is a normal human experience to have, and don't ever let anyone tell you you are crazy. You are not crazy. You're experiencing what 1 in 5 people across the world have experienced. It's just that not all of them speak about it.
Absolutely. Hear, hear.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing to remember is that if you take the example of the Aboriginals, they believe in the dream time, or the great dream where creation comes from, essentially. And the important thing to also take into consideration is, as Paul was saying, for the shamans, is that this is almost like a doorway to a different dimension, a different level, an astral plane. And the conscious mind just opens up to an incredible amount of information. And it's with regards to this information that sort of people, as we're sort of almost indoctrinated by our society as to what to believe and what not to believe in, people sort of tend to downplay it. But obviously, with the help of the internet and shows such as yourself, documentaries that we've done, people are coming out and saying, well, they've experienced this. And the more we talk about it, the more research will go into it. And then obviously things can start to, develop from there. And this is a stepping stone. It's essentially, people are talking about this experience they've had, or perhaps they've known that somebody has had the experience and people are freeing up. So, of course, it's still very much early stages, but it's very, very promising.
Mm-hmm. It is. Paul, I've got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Because you said this did happen to you and then it stopped. Now,
Right.
Is this a common thing that it happens every so often and then it's gone forever? Do you expect it to ever happen again?
Oh, no. When I say it stopped, I mean it stopped that particular episode. I've had it 3 times in my life. It generally tends to happen up until the age of 25 for people, but it can and often does go on. It can happen at any time. I don't believe there's a number on it. That's just a figure that Dr. David Hufford had come up with. He said it generally tends to stop at 25, but I had it way after that, so it does go on after that. And, if you can learn to, when it happens the first few times, it will be terrifying, but I believe if you can learn to relax when it does happen, if you have it frequently, the slightest movement can break it. Like if you can wiggle a toe, finger, or an eyelid when it happens, you can break the onset of sleep paralysis. It doesn't have to be terrifying. Generally, if it goes on for more than 20 seconds, it can turn into the out-of-body experience that people talk about. And that's what happened to me. So I do know that is completely possible, completely plausible.
Mm-hmm. I've got another question in the chat room. I think it's a question. Do you find any connection with sleep paralysis to the alien abduction phenomenon?
Well, we had a lot of people talking and asking the same question, talking about that question and asking the same question. And there is a connection. I'm not saying sleep paralysis is alien abduction, but based on somebody's perception and belief, you know, it can be interpreted a number of ways. So if you tend to believe in aliens and UFOs and you're open to that, what happens to you, especially if you don't know what it is, when sleep paralysis happens to you, can appear to be the classic signs or symptoms of an alien abduction scenario. And that pretty much the shadow beings that are also reported within this is what gives people that perception, because they see, you know, these shadow creatures standing there, and they kind of tend to say, oh, maybe that was an alien that I could see in my room when it happened to me. And we had one guy in the film, he said there was 3 of them in the bedroom at the same time. So he obviously, if he was UFO, you know, oriented, or he believed more in the UFO, he could have taken that as a classic.
I just got a comment from Patsy, who is the woman that has experienced this before, and she said, when you had the experience, did you see a figure on any occasion? She saw a dark figure, maybe 5 feet tall, with no features, not very discernible.
Yeah, I've never seen any figures during my episodes. I've just had the pressure, the out-of-body experiences, and the sounds. And it's different for everyone. But I know a lot of people who have seen the shadow person during this experience.
Well, when I just read what she wrote, the first thing I thought of was the shadow person. You know, without any discernible features, that's the first thing that comes to mind. And I imagine seeing a shadow person, whether it be during sleep paralysis or any time, is a bit daunting.
It is, and the shadow person or the shadow being has been reported worldwide with sleep paralysis. It's a one constant theme. It doesn't matter what country they're in or what culture they're from. The shadow people seem to always turn up, and people blame them for what's happening to them. So it's pretty amazing, and this ties into ancient beliefs about creatures called the jinn, you know, a race of beings that the Islamic culture have said coexist with us in the same space as us. It's just that we can't see them. And, you know, if you look at what we can perceive as human beings, you've got the electromagnetic spectrum, which goes all the way from radio waves to gamma waves, right? So there's a huge spectrum of measurable frequencies of light, different frequencies of light. We can only see, as human beings, or perceive 0.05% of that entire spectrum, which is a sliver. We are practically blind to all that exists, and that's just out of the spectrum we can measure, right? So if something else stood in your room and it existed on another frequency of light, it existed in another dimension, and it was in your space at the same time with you, it wouldn't necessarily be invisible to you, right? Because it would block out the light that we could see if it stood there. This is a theory that, after talking to lots of people about these shadow people I've come up with, it would block out the light that you could see and reflect towards you light that your eyes could not perceive. And therefore, it would appear just like a black silhouette, a shadow. This is what everyone describes. So that kind of really sums up what people could be seeing. They could actually be seeing these shadow people have been around for a long time. Marcus could talk greatly about them from the Islamic and the Eastern side. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, even pre-Islamic era, the archaeologists have found Sumerian tablets, which obviously have recorded history of stories which were told. But basically, they're known as the jinn. The jinn that actually comes and torments you when you're sleeping is known as Ifrit. And, well, in a nutshell, these jinns can live in our dimension and are free to travel. And from the Islamic part, the head of these jinns is known as Shaitan, or it is known in the West as Satan. And these beings are made of fire. And initially, when God asked, said to Shaitan or Satan, look, I've made Adam out of clay, so listen, mate, you're going to have to sort of bow down to Adam and to Eve. Satan said, "No way, Jose, I'm not going to go with that because I'm made of fire and this chap is made of clay. He's a weakling and I'm powerful." And of course, that's when the ruck started, or the conflict, and Satan basically said, "Right, I'm going to do my own thing and you're going to do your own thing." So when you're in the Middle East or in the Indian subcontinent, you can talk to taxi drivers and they will talk about the jinns. There's even cases where jinns have been very mischievous with the fridge. They've taken food out, they've put it somewhere, or for example, you've had your remote control in your hand for the TV and you've put it somewhere and you can't find it and it's gone missing. So there's all sort of these different characters of shadow beings, these interdimensional travelers, whatever you want to call them, that can exist on our plane given time, and there is no shame, particularly within the Middle Eastern or in the Indian subcontinent cultures, of talking about these beings. And I think, going back, I think the reason why, again, that there is a lot of shame, particularly in the West, it's also, if you look back historically, if you said this even in the 1700s, you'd be tried as a witch.
Yes.
You could not say these things, or you'd be saying that you're going into the black arts, or you are following Satan or whatever. So that's almost been sort of like repressed. But as people talk about it, and you collaborate the stories from right the way across the world, including the Middle East and the Indian subcontinent, I'm sure people are sort of like waking up to the fact that these spirit beings, whatever you want to call them, the jinn or the genie, we in the West refer to them as the genie, come out of a lamp, So these beings have been recorded throughout history. They're here, and through research and through the interviews, absolutely, we are seeing a collaboration of stories.
Now, do you both agree or disagree that, because we have a lot of paranormal investigators listening, and lots of them have seen shadow people,
right.
And there are different theories that the shadow people are spirits that have not learned to form into, full-blown apparitions, or, they're demonic or anything. Do you think all of these are one and the same?
No, I think there's many different aspects to these shadow beings. I mean, one thing is what if there were, and I don't know if your listeners are into the theory of dimensions. What if there was two dimensions that were colliding, and you had, because apparently, anything's possible, right? Anything is possible. So if you had something that existed on another dimension and it was in our space, and somehow we could read that, maybe it gave off an electromagnetic frequency that an EMF meter could pick up a slight reading on, or somebody caught it on a camera, just a silhouette of it. I've actually got a picture of a shadow person that was sent to me by a paranormal investigator, and it's pretty scary looking. I think I sent that to you, Marla. But anything's possible. I'm not saying that they're not passed on souls. They could be souls of people that have passed on and are just able to materialize as this shadowy silhouette form, or be captured by some EMF meter giving off a reading. So it could be anything, but it's fun to talk about it and discuss what it could be. I mean, there are so many possibilities. I couldn't say that it's any one thing. I mean, I have myself seen a shadow being, and then, that pretty much was a strange experience. Didn't really frighten me that much because I was with a bunch of people at the same time, but if you were on your own and you saw one, I could imagine it would be a pretty terrifying experience. But, to answer that question, I couldn't put my finger on exactly what they are. They could be a number of things.
Well, let's talk about my favorite shadow people in a very bad way, the men in the black hats.
Oh, the hat men.
The hat men, yes.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, I interviewed a lady who told me a story about a hat man that she saw twice in her life, and when she saw him, both on both occasions, somebody very close to her died, and she was convinced that he was giving her a warning. And these hat men have appeared all over the globe, and I don't know why they would take the time to dress up so nicely, turn up in a hat and, you know, and a cape to deliver a message of doom. It doesn't make sense. So, you know,
the Grim Reaper works in mysterious ways.
They are probably the stylish Grim Reapers from the other side of the universe. But
they've probably got a good sense of humor.
Yes,
in a twisted way.
But the Hat Man, it's a phenomenon that is worldwide, is cross-cultural, and seems to always bring messages to people or appear in times of crises. These Hat Men, you know, have been seen by so many people, and the best way to describe them is if you saw Zorro. Do you remember Zorro from the TV show years ago?
I won't admit that I did, but yeah, I do.
Zorro.
Well, if anyone wants to Google Zorro, Z-O-R-O, that's what he's dressed in and the way he looks. If he was jet black, that's what a Hat Man looks like.
Mm-hmm. They're almost like in the UK, what is it, the Barghest, the black dog, the harbinger of doom?
Yeah. I've actually, I spoke to a nurse once, and it's funny, when you mentioned black dog, she worked in a nursing home, and she told me that a lot of times when old people were going to die, they knew ahead of time, like the nurses would know because they would start talking about a black dog. They had seen a black dog. And I said to her, what is this? I never really heard about it until she started talking about it. But she told me about the black dog would always appear. And these old ladies and old men would say, yeah, we saw the black dog. And they knew that they were going to pass. It's such a strange coincidence that they all report the same thing.
But is it a coincidence? This is the thing. Yeah. I don't think so. I don't think there are coincidences. But
you're right. There's not. I shouldn't have said that. There are no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
That's but but I mean, it's just I think the men in the hats, the Hat Men, and shadow people in general are probably harder for people to take than were they to see, Great Aunt Susie appear to them, because that's recognizable. That's Great Aunt Susie. It's safe, but you see someone who is all in black and very scary. It's a whole different ballgame.
It is. I mean, imagine if you were walking down any street in America and a guy ran up to you just like one of those in a jet black suit. You couldn't see his face. I mean, that would be scary in itself. So how scary would it be to think that same thing appears in front of you, but it's not material? It's a non-material entity. I mean, that's why it's so terrifying. I suppose if you could see the features, it may be less terrifying, but the fact that you can't see anything but jet black, that would definitely send a shiver down anyone's spine. I don't care how tough you are.
Well, yeah, it's kind of the fear of the unknown. Even though it might be standing right in front of you, what is behind it? That's the thing.
Yeah.
And anybody that enjoys horror movies and stuff, you can start using your imagination. There's a skeleton behind that, or, take off your hat when you got brains falling out. Yeah, I mean, it could be anything. We all have great imaginations.
Well, it's interesting, Mark. Sorry, beg your pardon. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No, I'm done. Go.
Oh, sorry. Sorry for cutting you off there. I apologise. Well, you said about fear, and this is exactly what these shadow people thrive on. They thrive on fear. So you can imagine that your fear level is heightened, it's raised, and even through myths and legends going back to the Sumerian clay tablets. These beings really, really thrive on our fear levels, and Paul were having a chat about this, and it's just basically heightened sense, and of course they've got different levels of frequency, and they tap into this, and it's almost like it's party time for them. It's food, it's nourishment, and that's what they thrive on, to make us physically just so weak and small and fearful, and that's what it's all about. That's what they thrive on.
And they do it consciously. It's not, happenstance.
Yeah, because as you know, every single emotion you have, everything's a vibration. You give off an emotion of love, you're giving off a frequency, you give off the frequency of fear. Well, if something was receptive to that, it would be able to use that fear to, in essence, sustain itself as food. So when you give off this fear vibration, it's like you're feeding a habit of say you had someone who was hooked on drugs and they kept coming back to you for $5, $10 here and there, knowing that they could supply their habit. Well, these shadow creatures, and this is just from stuff I've picked up over the years, seem to always cause a massive amount of fear in people, and they seem to be associated with that. So one can only come to the conclusion that is their food, and they love to come back, scare the hell out of people, and they feed off that energy force.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And sorry.
No, go ahead.
And this is the reason why many cultures actually, when they organise weddings, they actually leave out food and fruit for these spirit beings as a way of appeasing them.
Mm-hmm.
And in pre-Islamic culture in the Middle East, there was a sort of there still is very much, they believe in a social organisation of the jinn, or the shadow beings. Mm-hmm. And their social community almost resembles that of human society. They have kings, they have courts of law, they have weddings, they have mourning rituals. Mm-hmm. And then they divide into classes. Some have wings and fly in the air, those who resemble snakes and dogs, those that can travel ceaselessly, and other reports that jinns respond to special prayers. And they come when they're called, and they have different values and virtues. So, and also must remember, we're referring to them right at this present time as shadow people. So we're saying they are people. They're shadow people. We're not calling them demons as such, but they have. And similarly, we can even refer to people, humans here. We say, well, that chap had demonic qualities. He was demon. He had no value for human life, etc., etc., etc. So, absolutely. So it's all about these classifications, and this is all from old and ancient texts and folklore, which is continually still coming along. So it's nothing new. It's all old hat, so to speak. But it's because we're now talking about it, and we're sort of putting the pieces of the puzzle together as best we can.
Mm-hmm. And it keeps happening. Therefore, things that happen for thousands and thousands of years. Same with ghost sightings, for example. People seeing spirits. Mm-hmm. Some things come and go. They're fads. They pass. It's lore. It's silly. But things that continue throughout history, there has to be something behind it. Whether we'll ever know exactly the root or the basis of it is another story. But it's there, and they keep coming back and coming back. And as you were talking about earlier, the dimensions. I mean, there are so many dimensions, and we are so limited compared to them, for example.
Yeah.
It's always going to be, I think, a great mystery that we may not figure out until we're over there.
Yeah, that's what I say. Yeah, I say that too. One day we'll all find out the truth.
Yeah, we'll find out.
As for how many dimensions there are, well, we'll probably never know that. Some scientists claim there are 11. I don't know how they come to that number, but I'm convinced that I don't know if you remember, well, when I was a kid, I used to make up these elastic balls. I used to take rubber bands and I used to knot them together, and I'd keep knotting them together until you had this ball. Mm-hmm. And they sold them now at Staples and stuff like that. But if you imagine every one of those rubber bands represented a dimension, right, or a reality, and you made this ball, right, with hundreds and hundreds of these dimensions all wrapped into the one space, into the one ball, that is what I believe everything is. We are all in one space, intertwined, all on different frequencies, and that's what dimensions and reality and, everything that we could imagine it's all in one space like that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the fun and part of the consternation as well is not knowing. But using your imagination and thinking about and learning about as much as you can, I think it opens up a lot of doors. And there are people, and I've said this 1,000 times. There are people that live in the black and white, and there are those of us that live in the gray. And when you live in the gray area, you open up immense possibilities.
Absolutely.
And I find it really hard for people that just see the black and white because they're missing out on so much.
Well, we are infinite beings. There's unlimited potentials. There are unlimited, outcomes to everything. So there is no one set rule, and I believe anything is possible. There are all possibilities. So people should stop, believing that what we were told in school is all there is. That is not the case. That was all we were told. That was all they wanted us to know. We have gone through that whole system. And what's amazing, all these people and listeners here, we've all gone through that system of education. We've all gone through the conditioning, the controlling, the basic brainwashing that we've had put into, our television, our radio, wherever. But we're still here today, all of us, talking about these type of subjects.
Absolutely.
We still want to know. And that proves that people are no matter what is thrown at them, they can still come through and say, no, I still want to find out the truth myself. And that's what we're doing.
Absolutely. When people say to me, look, I can't believe what you're saying, Marcus, or this is way too far-fetched, I say to them, look, just look at North Korea. This is a hermit kingdom. This place where people are shut off, they don't have access to the media, and they are told by the great Kim Il-sung what there is to know about life and about what's out there. And they're told that they live in the best country, that they have everything that they could ever want. It's paradise on earth. And they're shut off. And that is their education system. So when people talk to me about brainwashing, about indoctrination, I said, well, it can happen, and it's happened, and it's because you're sort of almost like ostracized for thinking out of the box, to go into that area of grey, as you said earlier on, Marla, to actually explore other possibilities. And the reason why, they say, well, what is your scientific background? How can you say that? How can you talk about dimensions? Have you got a degree in quantum physics? Do you understand what you're talking about? And it's because of these constraints, or I believe these constraints are now gradually fading away because people are asking questions, and it's because of the internet that people are now latching on information. Of course, there is a lot of stuff on the internet which could be completely far-fetched from the truth, but nonetheless, people should be given the option to actually explore all these possibilities and to actually be comfortable to be able to talk about it and not be embarrassed, because North Korea is a fine example in this reality, in this world, of a political system that has completely kept millions of peoples in blinkers, complete, and that's it.
Well, and you're also talking about science, and I think in our exploration of things that we're talking about now, there has to be certainly scientific documentation, but it also has to be free thinking. It has to incorporate other things, because not everything can be scientifically proven, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they say. Science hasn't said it, so therefore it must not exist. That's just absolute nonsense. And if we were allowed to free think as a global society, without having to go to school to do so, like to have credibility attached to any of your findings, I believe mankind would probably be 500 to 1,000 years more advanced than we are now.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I mean, just look at what happened in the Middle Ages in Europe. I mean, we were during the height of the Roman civilization. We were understanding mathematics, and of course, people have to look at Pythagoras' theorem. It's a few thousand years old, and we still use it today to build structures. We use that theorem. We use algebra, and yet when people are are closed off during the Middle Ages. The development in science, in philosophy is retarded. And of course we had this renaissance that came up where people started to come into the open. And of course this is how we get the secret societies, where if you wanted to speak your mind, you couldn't do it freely. So you form these secret societies, and your mysterious handshakes, and so on and so on and so on. And people talked and communicated in code. Some of the great painters did. Leonardo da Vinci was one of them. Paintings are mostly coded. You look at it. If you look at it from purely from a sort of aesthetic view, so you see what you want to see. But if you look deeper, you will see symbology coming through. And so once again, I mean, we were retarded. We were going back, and now once again, through the use of the internet, people are starting to ask questions. And as Paul said, and as you've said, it's absolutely wonderful. It's a good time, I say. It's a very, very good time, because very, very important, extremely important, because it's very easy for society to actually take a backward step. It's either through fear, through being you're half a shilling, you're not all there, or through state control, as they've got in North Korea. And even if the poor sods wanted to say something, they couldn't, because they'd probably be sent to a gulag somewhere, a work camp, and that would be the end of that. So yeah, I mean, absolutely.
All right, now I'm going to veer off just slightly, because at the beginning of the show I said that we had some exciting news, and I think we do. In addition to the documentaries and other projects that you're working on, you've got a new show coming up, and having talked a little bit about it with you guys the other day, I can't wait, so let's share and let everybody get excited as well.
Shall you or shall we?
You shall.
I
think this is trial by fire. It's your...
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Soul Smack Live has decided to delve into the area of radio production. So we are launching our own radio shows, which will be weekly on Sunday. And we've got a host of guests lined up to be with us. Our first show will be on shadow people. And we're going to have the amazing Heidi Hollis talking about them. And we're going to talk about subjects ranging from, the paranormal, UFO, supernatural, anything unexplainable. We're going to talk about conspiracy theories. We're also going to talk about, general health issues that are raised around the world. We're talking about stuff that people are talking about, getting removed from society so we can live more productive and healthy lives. And we're basically going to have a roundtable chat. There'll be myself, Marcus and Andrew, and we'll have our guests on. And we're coming over to a network which you're all familiar with. It's the Para-X network.
Yay.
And so we'll be on the Para-X network at 7 o'clock this Sunday. Our first show will be with Heidi Hollis. So that's the news, and we're very appreciative of Dave and Marla for helping us with this and bringing us over. And I think it will be a great fit. We'll bring a lot to your listeners, and I hope that your listeners will enjoy what we bring to the table, because we will be uncovering some amazing stories from around the world.
Well, that's just it. I hope at some point when we were talking the other day, Marcus, you were talking about having been to Russia several times, and during your time there, becoming interested in the KGB archives and about the USOs and the Soviet mind over matter experiments, and you've met a few former KGB psychics.
Yes.
That in itself is fantastic. I mean, just if people go to your website, which is www.soulsmacklive.com, I believe.
Yeah.
And just have a look at the list of guests that these guys are going to have on. I mean, it's not one of those shows that you're going to sit back and have a cup of coffee or a drink and not think. I mean, these are thought-provoking shows that are just going to blow the lid off of so many people, so many different topics. I'm like I said, I'm really excited.
I'm glad you are. No, I mean, we we've had a strong interest, Marcus and myself and Andrew as well, over the years in all of this stuff. So it's something that we're passionate about. And we know who the major players are in the game, and we know who the major offenders are in the game, if there are any. And
yes, bring them to book.
We'll bring them to book. So
bring them out. That's what I say.
Yeah, unleash on everyone.
Unleash it. Absolutely.
We're gonna have fun. We're gonna have a great show. We're gonna have some great interaction with your audience and listeners, and they'll be our listeners as well. And we're going to just try and educate the ones that are not aware of all of the, these issues that are going on. And then, we'll have the more light-hearted shows as well. So it will be a good all-round experience. And I think for a Sunday afternoon, I don't think you could ask for anything better than to have something that's, that's informative, thought-provoking, and entertaining all at the same time.
Yeah, that's hard to do. Sorry, what?
No, I said we're going to have some Cockney banter. We're going to say, everybody, lovely to have you.
You start talking Cockney and I'm going to get lost. Hey, a little Liverpudlian will be all right with me, but that Cockney, I don't know. It's those apples and pears.
Apples and pears, mate, yeah.
Yeah.
We have to be careful because when, especially when I speak to people over here, if you use slang term, they just get lost in it because obviously they don't know what you're talking about. So I have to sort of think about every word I'm saying,
But when Marcus was talking about those secret languages and things, Cockney is definitely that.
It is. It's an old East London language that was used basically. I should imagine it could only be used for one purpose, and that was to hide something. So they were obviously hiding stuff out in the open.
I mean, I go as far as easy peasy, and I don't think that's Cockney, but at least I understand that.
Yeah.
But I saw a show once where they were doing explaining the Cockney thing and apples and pears stairs. All right, well, okay. How did people think this up? It's rather mind-boggling. Maybe you should do a show on that.
Maybe they were like early the first rappers on the planet, early like 18th century rappers. They put together some rhyming slang.
Well, interesting enough, because before we actually started to bring in tea from India, we had a big problem with gin. And gin was given to the working class generally to pipe them down, so they wouldn't get any revolutionary thoughts in their heads. And so, there is a tragic story behind it. But of course, I mean, they would sort of come out in rhymes, and as Paul was saying, maybe they were the first rappers that came onto the scene, but they would rhyme. So, hat in the mist stands for piss, but you're drunk.
No, that one I'm going to have to remember.
Yeah, bleep that one out. But pissed in the UK doesn't mean the same as it does here. It means you're actually drunk.
Exactly.
It means drunk. Yeah, so that's what it means.
So in addition to all these wonderful topics you're going to have, every so often we may learn a little bit of UK slang, catchphrases, and all those things.
We'll bring you all up to speed, get your P's and Q's, and then you can all fly over to England and take over the place,
Yeah. We can do
well, we should subtitle your show with Andrew there, Two Brits and a Yank. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, he can be the Yank, though.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with wank, but that's a whole nother story.
What did you say, Marla?
I didn't say a word. No.
You're going to have to bleep that one out.
How about this? Go through some phonetics. The water in Mallorca don't taste like it oughta. Oh, doodle. No,
so I was going to say.
Everybody that's listening, see, I mean, already you're getting a built-in audience right now.
Oh, cool. I hope your audience enjoyed us tonight, and we enjoyed being on, and we really appreciate the opportunities that have been offered to us, and we won't disappoint you. But if anyone wants to check us out before the show, definitely visit soulsmacklive.com You can read all about us, our bios. You can listen to some past shows, watch our trailer. And if you want to order the DVD for sleep paralysis, it's called Your Worst Nightmare, Supernatural Assault. You can do that. It's not that expensive. We made it affordable so people can afford to buy it in this downturn, which is probably going to last another decade. But we hope people can buy it. And there's forums there. If you want to chat to other people who have had sleep paralysis, you can do so there. So, yeah, and also our shows are all listed. If you click the banner at the top of our homepage where it says click here for the radio info, you can click that and see the lineup we've got for you. I'm going to have to go in there and change some information because our times have changed slightly, but that will be updated tomorrow. It's
fantastic, and I know, Paula Marcus, you're not in the chat room, but Dave sent you a message. He said, welcome aboard, guys. Glad to have you as part of the family.
Thank you, Dave. We appreciate that.
Thank you, mate. That's appreciated. So,
all right. Well, you know what?
Yeehaw.
Yeah. Yeehaw?
Yeehaw? Yeah. Yeehaw!
Uh-oh, we're rubbing off on him now. All right. Yeah. That works. Well, an hour is never enough when I'm talking to you guys, but it went by quickly, and we're going to have to wrap for tonight. I really want to thank you. It's a pleasure speaking to you. And
you're welcome.
Being here, and I will echo Dave. Welcome to the family. I think you're going to like it here.
Thank you. Yes. We like it already. Look at that. We've moved in. We've moved in already.
Yeah. See, make yourself at home. Kick your shoes off. Get comfortable. It's all good.
Cool.
All right. Yes. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening. As usual, we had a great chat room, great questions, great interaction. And so stay tuned for Soul Smack Live coming very soon. And until next time, everybody, blessed be and merry meet again. Good night.
This has been another edition of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Be sure to tune in next week at the same time for another great guest and more fun. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2009.